I set myself a challenge to try and make the beef Wellington as tasty as I could, but as cheaply as I could, using ingredients from Lidl. Can we get Michelin-star food from Lidl ingredients? Regarded by many as some of the pinnacle of dining, an excellent party piece, a bit of a showstopper, and probably the person most famous for making it, Gordon Ramsay. I'm Gary from Big Spud, and when you think of Gordon Ramsay, what do you think of?
It's mush! What is that? Are you?
An idiot sandwich.
Oh no!
Well, yes, quite. Gordon Ramsay, of course, a whole raft of Michelin stars to his name through his massive empire of restaurants around the world, and he's more than happy to tell you about it. Arguably, his most famous dish is the Beef Wellington, a beef fillet wrapped in pastry and other little goodies inside. The idea being that really it's a test of a chef because you can't really tell what you're going to get until you slice it open and there's the finished dish. In fact, recently Gordon has said he made his 1 millionth Wellington.
Have just recently sold our 1 millionth Wellington.
I don't really know how he's calculated that, it sounds made up to me. But there you go, he certainly made a lot of them, let's put it that way. Now, beef Wellington is not cheap. I had some friends coming around the other day and I thought, oh, let's make a beef Wellington for them. And my local butcher wanted to charge me £40 for a small 500-gram cannon of beef fillet, so I politely declined after being roused by smelling salts. But it got me thinking, is there a cheaper way to make beef Wellington? Perhaps if you shop at a cheaper shop, a shop like Lidl. If you go shopping at 9 PM at night like I do, your choices in the beef fillet market are remarkably reduced. We've got a number of elements to get through. We need to make a crepe, we need to make a mushroom duxelle, and of course we've got to prepare the beef too. So just sauteing down our mushrooms, waiting for all the moisture to release. We've got plenty of colour on it now, which is great. Gordon talks about making sure there's lots of seasoning throughout the whole dish. So I'm going to make sure of that shortly. I think that's going to do. And next Gordon asks us to make some crepes. Very thin crepes that act as like a protective seal around everything so none of the meat juices leak out. Obviously what you don't want with the beef Wellington is that bottom layer of pastry to be sodden as the meat juices come out and make that pastry soggy. So the crepe is like a protective layer, and you've got an opportunity for flavour there, but really it's a protective thing. So this is where we have an omelette. So very, very thin omelette, crepe, just a very simple egg and flour mix. He calls for chive flowers and thyme. Now, my local Lidl did not sell chive flowers. They also didn't sell loose thyme. So I'm just going to go without. So a fairly standard pancake batter, just eggs, flour and milk with a little seasoning, quite a lot of seasoning actually. When you watch Gordon's videos on the subject, he talks about how obviously you don't get any opportunities to season the Wellington after it's done, so you need to do it lots of times whilst you're making it. Spray oil and then try and weigh out . Usually the first one is garbage. Let's see how we do. There we go, that's come out okay. I was a bit worried. It says just cook for a few seconds just to completely seal that side. And I'm just going to make a stack of these. This video idea comes from channel member Nameless as part of a community video I put out just for my members, where I was putting ideas back and forth, and their idea really set me on the path to make this one. If you'd like to support the channel from only 99p a month, you can be part of the members of the Big Spud community, and I post extra videos up there, extra little posts, and sometimes I converse with you as well. All that money goes back to helping the channel, whether it's buying ingredients, buying cookbooks, subscribing to courses, or buying equipment that I can film things with as well. Check it out down below. So my pancakes are all done, they're cooling behind me over there, my mushroom duxelle is done. Now let's turn our attention to our beef. So I've got this Birchwood British beef fillet steak, cost 30 days matured, cost $4.99 for 170 grams. It's not cheap for a palm-sized fillet of steak. So let's see, I'm going to season that all over. And we're just going to sear it very quickly on all sides. When you're cooking Wellington, the majority of it happens inside the oven. This is just colouring the outside, otherwise you're just sort of steaming the meat. And it's not particularly attractive. I've come up a little short there, so I'm just going to turn it again. It colours on all sides, all the way around. So I've got this tiny little steak because it's just me eating. You probably get like 400 grams, maybe 500 for 4 people. So you get a nice thick slice each. This steak is arguably the size you would have as your slice, right? And then I'm just going to leave that on this plate. Now, young Master Gordon asks for Dijon mustard, but Lidl don't sell Dijon mustard, at least not the one I went to on the day I went, so I'm going to use some American mustard. What? We're on a budget here. So squeezing it on, then while it's still hot, just brushing it with the mustard. And what that's going to do, that's just going to melt into that. And just provide another layer of seasoning. You probably won't think, mustard. It's just like this gentle seasoned heat. So now I'm going to leave that to one side while I do some other stuff. So now I'm going to actually assemble, starting with my pancakes. So I had a mixed bag. Some were perfect, some not so much, but that's okay. Master Gordon actually says to square them up. So let's do that quickly. And I think because of the size of the beef that I'm using, I can get away with a single pancake, so we'll use these another time. And now, Parmesan or prosciutto. Now this won't be budget because this is the same brand that is available in just about every shop. Possibly there's cheaper ones if you go at the right time, but this was the one they had. And I think again, a single layer is going to do it because of the small piece of beef that I'm using. Enough of our mushrooms to make a layer. Now, having made these before, I know to keep the mushrooms away from the edge because otherwise they get twisted up in the pastry and they cause it to unseal. So just getting that out of the way. Beef is quite cool now, so we're just going to lay that on. And now I'm just going to roll that up using this cling film I've already put on the board. Now I haven't got a very round piece of beef. You know, it's clearly been a long tenderloin that they've sliced into steaks, but you know what? That's what you get at supermarkets. You'll have to go to a very, very high-end supermarket or a butcher's to get that done properly. So there's my little pancake bundle, and I'm now going to just pop that in the fridge for a few minutes, just so it all glues together and goes solid. While that goes on, let's do the pastry part. So I managed to find ready rolled puff pastry, which I was a bit surprised at. I went hunting. They did actually have a really good selection, but I just didn't see it. So I'm not going to need all of this sheet, I don't think. So I'm going to trim that down a bit. By the way, If you're interested in the history of puff pastry, check out this link up here over at History and Taberna. Looked into the history of puff pastry, and it's not quite what you'd expect. An interesting watch. Go check it out. There's our little Wellington in its little home. So we're just going to give the ends a little egg, make sure everything sticks together. So I've got too much pastry, so we're just going to nip off at the end there. Roll that up, and that should have now just sealed the sides of the pastry. The whole thing, lovely egg wash. I think there's only one design we can do on this, right? Which will allow the steam to come out and hopefully give me a bit of a giggle when it comes out. It's now going into the oven for 18 minutes. So that was pretty cheap, but I think we can go cheaper. So instead of a fillet steak, we are going to make a little beef patty, a sort of Salisbury steak, if you're familiar with that. So we're going to use 5% beef mince, and that will give us some quite lean mince to work with. I'll have to cook it a little bit further in the pan. I'm just going to basically smush it into a patty and add plenty of seasoning. Keep going. Now while that sears, there's no way I'm going to use prosciutto, so let's use just smoked bacon. I'm looking at the size of my piece of mince. I reckon I'll need 2 pieces of bacon. I'm going to use a rolling pin just to make it go a little further. So it's coloured on all sides. I'm going to move it to an oven just for 5 or so minutes so that it can continue cooking around. Now, puff pastry feels like a rich man's game, so what can we do that's cheaper? Good old white bread. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to trim off the ends, trim off the crusts. Again, using my rolling pin, just going to squish it down and just overlap them so hopefully they knit together. I'm actually looking at it, I think we're going to need a 3rd slice. Let's add some crepes. Then we can lay it on our bacon. My little beef brick should be done now. It's like a recipe from the mid-2000s when everyone was a bit obsessed with bacon. Yeah, I don't know why I didn't cling film that. If I'd have cling filmed that would have worked a lot better. Let's give it a fry. Like our beef, that's going to go in the oven just to cook through. I think it's high time we had a look at our budget Beef Wellington. Our little budget Beef Wellington with our scoring on. I haven't cut it open yet, it's been resting for a few minutes. We need to do the big reveal. Let's find out. Always the moment of truth, isn't it? Pastry sounds good. Ready? Ah, that's come out pretty bloody good. Yeah, it's got a little bit of ooze to it, a little bit of juice. I would say the underside's okay, not 100%, and I probably could have rested it a couple minutes more. But let's find out how it tastes. I'm going to cut myself a little finger-sized piece. Remember, we've got our crepe, we've got our mushrooms, we've got our mustard, we've got our pastry, and of course the beef. It's pretty good. I've got to tell you, it's pretty good. The beef itself is okay. The beef isn't bursting with flavour, and you know that is, to be blunt, what you're paying for with better meat. Serving that to family and friends with a nice gravy on the side, a pan sauce, maybe a red wine sauce would be lovely. Some vegetables, some potatoes, possibly. And I think they'd be really impressed. And what we need to do now is look at our other alternative and look at the budget. And here's my super budget version. It's not much of a looker. The bread, the bacon, but let's see how it tastes. You don't particularly need to rest this version because the mince texture is loose, therefore everything can get out. Let's dive straight into the middle. There we go, that is cooked mince. Bread, crepe, mushroom, bacon. Okay, well it's seasoned enough, I can tell that. There's no question that you think you were eating Beef Wellington though. For obvious reasons, it tastes more like you're eating a burger. I think my American cousins might call it a patty melt when you use bread in a burger like that. Presumably you need cheese to make the melt element, but it's a lot of fun. Do you know, I think kids might get into this, and because of its origin, I feel like I want ketchup with it rather than gravy, although gravy would be really nice. Let me go my Aldi Beef Wellington there, and my super budget version here. Now, I really want to finish eating these, so I'm going to eat these now, and then you can go over to Gary in the future to get all the costs, and we'll come back and see what they look like. So this is future Gary here. I've already eaten the Wellington that you've just seen me make, and sat down very full, and now I'm working out the costings. I've got my receipts. Why have I got 2 receipts? Well, I definitely didn't forget the prosciutto and had to go back the next day to buy it. That didn't happen, so that's good. So I'm looking at the prices, and I've put down everything as what I paid for it, and the quantities, and how much of it I actually used. For example, although I bought 6 eggs, the Wellington itself only needs 1.5 eggs. I needed 2 eggs to make the crepes, then another egg as an egg wash, and then I split it to the 2 recipes. And when it came to the bread, I think I counted there were 25 slices of bread in there, but I used 3 for my other recipe. I ended up paying $4.99 for my steak, which was good, and 74p for my bread. I must have misread the sign. My mince was only £3.69, and actually was pretty good mince, if I'm honest. And I've settled for now on calling my bread-wrapped bacon as a gumbo in here, in honour of the name, but I don't know what it should be called. A beef blucher, a Salisbury choux, a patty plimsoll. If you can think of a better name for my super budget recipe, I'd love to hear it. Pop it in the comments down below. But anyway, on to the costs. So, the Lidl Wellington, when you put together the things I needed, a couple of things I haven't included: salt, pepper, oil, and flour and milk. It's possibly an oversight not to include the flour and milk, but I'm hoping you have most of those things just in your cupboard and fridge. that you can use. If not, you know, add 10p onto the cost if you want, if it makes you feel better. But the Wellington, when I break it down and add down the components that I needed, the whole Wellington cost £6.38. Now, because I'm Future Gary and I've eaten it, I actually think you could serve that between two with vegetables, with sides, as you wish. A gravy or sauce and some greens would be really nice with that. Which then means that one Wellington serves two, and the portion cost is £3.19. So the Lidl Wellington that I've made costs £3.19. Now the gumboot that I've made is obviously made with far inferior ingredients, and again the whole thing could serve two people. To make one individual block is £2.83, which means an individual serving costs £1.41. So what would it cost to get the Beef Wellington from Gordon Ramsay's own restaurant? And he serves it in a number of places, including his Bread Street Kitchen and Bar, which I have been to some years ago as a birthday treat. It was really nice. So on there, for example, the Beef Wellington for two people. So this is in the St Paul's area of London, so very city. They could charge kind of what they want. Beef Wellington for two people, served with mashed potato and red wine jus. Please allow 45 minutes. £120, so £60 per person, compared to my £3.19. These aren't the same thing, of course they're not, but it's fun to look at that price and see it. Obviously you're paying for a building, staff, expertise, the quality of ingredients. I'm not suggesting for a minute one equals the other, but it's an interesting way to look at it. But for now, over to Past Gary, who will do all the goodbyes and stuff. So there we go, my Aldi Beef Wellington on a budget. I hope you enjoyed that. I've done other recipes and I'm trying to build up a whole playlist of trying to make Michelin-starred food on a real budget and seeing how far we can push it. I hope you enjoyed that. Please subscribe, it helps the channel out enormously, and like the video because it helps push it out to other people. And I'll catch you next time.